All right, everybody, new merch. We got some art done by artist Thomas C. Rogers. You may have seen some of his collabs with Devils of Dirt Hawking. He has also done some extensive work with Harley Davidson. There's no AI done here on our merch. Of course, our thumbnails are always AI, but check it out on sportingchancepod.com. We got pullovers, zip-ups, long sleeves, t-shirts, and of course, stickers.
And this podcast is brought to you by Mountain State Falconry Supply. Freshen up your gear or get ready for the micro season. Visit mountainstatefalconrysupply.com.
And don't forget to get the tightest braided equipment on the market at midnightfalconry.com.
If you haven't put a deposit down on your next hunting partner, now's the time. Contact Seth Roy at northmountaingoshawks.com for your next season's hunting partner.
All righty, everybody. Welcome back to the Sporting Chance podcast. Today we are joined by Gavin Lipjes. Did I say that right?
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And Gavin is part of, is it panthertrackers.com?
Correct. Panther Trackers.
Okay. And is that solely you or is that an organization?
That is solely me. It may change in the near future. There's something in the pipeline and we may be spreading a little bit more globally, but as it is now, yes, that's me.
So for those of you wondering what Panther Trackers is, Gavin's sport that brought him to us today is hunting leopards in Africa, which is just the coolest.
Doesn't get much cooler than that, I think.
I guess it's just normal stuff to Gavin, though. He probably thinks flying birds is cool comparatively.
Exactly.
No, he doesn't. no, he doesn't. He definitely doesn't think that's cool.
No, I definitely do.
I'm just kidding, Gavin.
Yeah.
Last year, Gavin, me and Casey went to West Virginia to hunt with a friend of ours on black bear, and we were running his hounds after black bear. They would tree the black bear, and we shoot the bear when it's treed. And I made the point to Casey, I was like, this all makes flying hawks after rabbits and squirrels feel really silly. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I guess the adrenaline is perhaps not at the same volume, but the husbandry certainly is. So yeah, I can definitely see the association there, but yeah, I get your point. Might not be as adrenaline fueled.
The funny part about the adrenaline is the adrenaline that I felt shooting the bear was comparable to the adrenaline I felt for the first black southeastern fox squirrel that I caught with a hawk. Like my heart was beating out of my chest. I was so excited about it.
Did you catch another one today, Aaron?
I did.
So that one in the group chat, that was a new one.
That was a new one.
Oh my God. That's awesome, dude. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I couldn't put two and two together because it looked it was like almost exactly the same as the other one.
Yeah, when you see it, it's a little different. It's got like silvery guard hairs on the butt, but
that's nice.
They'll all be mounted. So, Gavin is calling into us from Australia, and he's on a satellite internet connection. So there might be some times where we have a little couple pauses, but it'll all work out in the end.
Yeah, sorry, I did just miss the last little bit that you said there. I hope you caught what I said about the husbandry complement between hound hunting and falconry.
Yeah, we caught that. Me and Casey we also run dogs with our hawks as well.
I saw that. Yeah, interesting little Dachshunds and yeah, very cool.
So we're actually houndsmen as well, just miniature houndsmen.
Yeah.
My Instagram bio is mini houndsman. My hounds are like 6-7 pounds.
But they have the same drive and tenacity and go in them as the big ones.
Those poor little things would go after a leopard, unbeknownst to them that it could crush them.
They could slide underneath and get right underneath the belly and cause some trouble.
I think for
Rip its guts out.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, when I walked in the door, Aaron's mad because I was rushing and I was late. And as I'm like setting up the computer, I left Franny home today because she was tired from yesterday. And when I put both the dogs down, she just literally latched onto Maggie's face and was trying to kill her for no reason. Just schizophrenic. And I had to I had to run out there, rip them apart, throw her out in the snow. And then I asked my mother-in-law, who's not like an animal person, I'm like, just keep them separated. I'm so sorry. And then I had to like run back in. And then Aaron was mad at me. And Aaron gave me a talking to. Gave me detention, this guy.
Took him out behind the woodshed, as we like to say down here.
Can't do that anymore.
You can. You just can't get caught.
Exactly.
Casey, before you joined us, me and Gavin were talking about the namesake of this podcast, A Sporting Chance by Daniel Mannix. And Casey also has a copy. It is subtitled Unusual Methods of Hunting. And it was one of the first books published in America that talks about falconry, which is what brought me to it. But it talks about other things in here, such as the blowgun, hunting with a bow and arrow, which actually is a strange, surprisingly modern concept in America. We'll have to do a show about that at some point. The boomerang, Australia, got the boomerang here. Dangerous game, hunting American big game with hounds. And then one of the silliest is he trains a toad to catch sparrows. But a lot of interesting things, but what you're doing is in the spirit of falconry, in our opinion. And that's kind of what drove us to start this podcast, is to talk to people who are doing interesting, unorthodox hunting around the world.
Well, as a bit of a reference to that, a lot of the literature that I've studied and we study as houndsmen goes back into early European origins, and a lot of those books, even around medieval times, and that all the depictions, all the art, you'll see someone on a horseback with a falcon on an arm and a pack of hounds. It is a hand in glove. It's so similar. Obviously, we have this modern separation now, but I don't think it was always that way.
I think the same type of people do the same sport.
Exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of books, I've been on a big kick of this. Jim Corbett.
Jim Corbett, yeah.
I'm sure you're very familiar with his work. For those of you listening, I'm holding up The Man-Eating Leopard of Rudraprayag. And the leopard, I believe it was 148 people is what it killed.
Yeah.
In India in the early 1900s. So leopards, absolutely deadly animals.
It is a super predator. Every part of it is sharp, so athletic. It's so alert. But when you have a look in an African content, which is different to what has been experienced in India, and you'll probably be able to read that in the books, the reason why. But leopard are not that attributed to a lot of fatalities. Quite a bit of attack, mostly provoked attack, or in a sense provoked attack, but very few man-eating cases as compared to lions, African lions. And in terms of fatalities to the general public, well below crocodiles, hippos, elephant. And so, yes, they are a super predator, but in the African environment, not as feared as they may be as leopards and tigers are in India.
And a very widespread animal, too. Leopards are in many places.
Yes, correct. And so many different forms that they come in, from the snow leopard inhabiting peaks of Tibet right through to Indian leopards to leopards in Africa, so widespread.
I read a book recently. I think it's called The Tiger. Maybe it was about the tiger and an Amur tiger in Siberia that killed a handful of people. But they reference leopards as well in there that are living in the snow in Russia.
And it's a slightly different coat pattern, obviously much denser fur, slightly larger animal, but critically endangered, at least to my last understanding of the population there. Very few left, as is the Amur tiger as well.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the snow leopard, did you guys see that woman that was attacked by one?
I thought that was AI, to be honest with you.
They said it was real.
It looked really real, and the way the leopard was on top of her, it looked real. But like, there's so much crap now; it's so hard to like figure out what's real and what's AI. But I'm like, if AI made that, that really looks like a snow leopard, like on her. Yeah, and it ripped her face apart, right?
I'm not entirely sure what it did, but it certainly attacked her.
There was
did you see that, Gavin?
I didn't see it, no, but I'll got something to go look for now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was probably a juvenile.
One more piece of show and tell that I have here. You recognize that, Gavin?
Yeah, that looks like a lion skull, huh?
It's actually a leopard.
Okay.
Is it a leopard? That looks really big for a leopard.
It's forced perspective.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had it all up in the camera, and it like looks like it's like the size of my head, but it's fairly small. Surprisingly small. But these things, this could kill me for sure. When it was alive, obviously. And
well, that's a prime individual. If you have a look at the teeth there, obviously they've been whitened slightly through the preservation process. But if you look at the sharpness of that, it's a prime animal.
It's this was given to me as a gift, and the guy that gave this to me has been fortunate enough to hunt leopards in Africa, and he told me. Now, I would love to hear your perspective on it. He told me one of the most dangerous ways to hunt them is with hounds.
Well, there's a long conversation around that, and I'll give you my full opinion. I think it's the only real sporting way to hunt them. Now, that obviously sparks a bit of controversy because there's so many fellow hunters that are very happy to set up a bait and a blind and shoot an animal over that. And I'm not detracting from that or taking away or creating enemies, but I really think that big game, dangerous game should be tackled in that sense. So, for reference, we could shoot an elephant from a helicopter and it would have no knowledge that we're there. It would be a very humane kill. It would die on the spot. It could be a very accurate shot. And we could selectively take the biggest, oldest elephant we like. And at the end of the day, the result would be the same. You would be standing next to a post-prime elephant that only had a few years left to live, and there you've taken the animal, okay, just as an example. And we could do the same thing with a leopard from a blind at 100 yards. But I think there's a loss of engagement. So if you get on the ground and you track that elephant and you get within 35 yards and you do the same action, it's a very, very different process. And after more than 20 years of being involved in the hunting industry, there's a point where I think process is more important than result, actually. And result is important. It does matter. But process is actually what our traditions come from, our cultures come from. It's where 90% of the enjoyment comes from. It's even what you're doing when you're not hunting. If you go home and oil your rifle or you feed your birds or whatever it is, all of that is the ingredient of hunting. So the final shot is fairly irrelevant. Not irrelevant, but less important. And I think that's why hound hunting is the only way to take big cats, big predators, even bears, polar bear even. You need to face that animal. Now, in a situation where you can visually track that beast, maybe across the snow, you may not need dogs. But most of these solitary, elusive, crepuscular animals are very difficult to follow by sight. And for how long have we had this husbandry with hounds? I mean, we've selectively bred that. Humans have created that tool to be able to assist us where our sight fails, their scent takes over. And being able to use that tool to continue on tracking that elusive cat or bear or whatever it may be, wolf, to a point where you can get within that shooting range, spearing range, bow and arrow range, knife, whatever the chosen method is. That is the most authentic way. And obviously I'm biased to this, but that, in my opinion, is the most authentic way to tackle them. So with that does come a level of danger. But if we mention dangerous game hunting, do we exclude danger when we that's what we're doing it for? That's the whole purpose. It's for the human to challenge himself against another super predator. And while we are so physically inferior, we are mentally superior. So we have the intellect, and that is our competency. So the leopard's fangs and claws and speed and agility is its, but we can't match that. So we match it, with intellect. And it's still a very fair position to put yourself in. And the danger factor is a portion that shouldn't be removed and should be accepted. And it is by hundreds of sportsmen every year. They'll go out after grizzly bears in Alaska, Cape buffalo, whatever it might be. And that is the spirit of dangerous game hunting.
I definitely agree with you that if you're going after a dangerous animal, it's only right that you subject yourself to some of that danger.
Yeah, I think it's lost if you don't. I think it's lost if you don't engage on that level, because there's only a certain window where the animal's abilities or superiority can overcome yours. So if you avoid that, well, you might as well just shoot it from a helicopter, in my opinion.
Well said.
Very well said. Eloquently said also. Now,
the accent certainly helps.
Oh, this guy is like, he's a voice for radio. I said it before the show started. He has a voice for radio. Now I have so many questions for you, and Aaron knows I'm like, me and Franny are similar. We're kind of like schizophrenic. So like I get these questions and like I can't stop. So I'm trying to like hold myself back to see where Aaron how the conversation wants to go, because I have a million questions for you.
I think it's non-negotiable that we have to start with how you got into this.
100%.
And then we can go from there.
Sure. I mean, I'll give you the background. It's always a good reference. It really isn't about me. I really like to be able to put forward that any involvement in these wonderful media situations is to be able to put forward what we do. Hound hunting is prime, big game hunting secondary, and the conservation and the preservation of both of those two things is the real message. So I appreciate the time or the ability to be able to put that forward on platforms like yourselves. So myself, born South African. On my mother's side, there's quite a long heritage in South Africa. We obviously come from pioneers. We're not African natives in our history. Very similar to the American history. Europeans settled the continent in various forms from different origins. and nations were built that way, using the technology that came with the ships over the sea and the manpower and the local knowledge of the people that were inhabiting those spaces when the Europeans arrived. So I'm a derivative of that. My surname Lipjes is of Dutch descent, so that's a lot of where our family comes from. And I got into hunting hounds by depredation work and by problem animal work, I should say. My father farmed macadamia nuts and avocados, and bush pig, which a native bush pig, were a big problem, and they can eat a lot of crop in the night. And there were a variety of species, but the major variety that was planted of the macadamia there dropped its nuts. And when they land on the floor in the darkness of night, the bush pig feasted on them, and they accounted for a large portion of profitability. So it's a thing, and it's not just bush pig. Problem animals occur across agriculture everywhere in the world and throughout South Africa in various forms. And humans have a whole lot of different ways of combating against that. But one of the most fun ways is to hunt them. And so I really enjoyed doing that. But I was quite unsuccessful until I was introduced to a pack of bush pig dogs by a good friend who is still a crazy passionate dog man. And he had a bunch of riff-raff, scruffy, mixed up dogs, but they did the job. And we shot more bush pig over his dog in a short space of time than I had in, I don't know, countless nights of trying to do it barefoot with a torch, watching the wind, sneaking in, and which was very, very ineffective. And then through him, I made a connection with the late Tennis Botha. This is a man who is, or was, quite instrumental, quite a pioneer in commercializing the use of leopard hounds in the trophy hunting industry, in the hunting industry, the African hunting industry. And he was a big personality, and he never had small dreams or small ambitions, and he made a big impact in hound hunting just by the fact that he didn't do anything on half measures. He had 100 dogs literally, and there was no place he didn't go, and he wasn't prepared to go, and there was no big game animal he wasn't prepared to put his dogs on, and so I was fortunate to have met him and worked for him a little while, and he sort of gave me the insight and the direction, and he certainly embedded the passion for it. And from there, I just, the bug bit, and I have not left it for more than 20 years now. So that's the origin.
Hard to beat that origin. So the guy you referred to that had over 100 dogs, is he still with us?
No, unfortunately, he had a very premature accident. An elephant killed him. It was fairly complicated situations, and he definitely left the planet too early because I think he still had a huge amount to contribute to what we do and to African conservation and to the promotion of hounds and safari hunting and that. But no, he left us several years ago. His wife remains very committed to the breeding of their hounds. He's developed, or they in combination developed, a very sturdy strain of hound by combining Blue Gascon and Blue Tick, and they've really tested that in African conditions, and they have a very good genetic set there now. There is another very passionate houndsman that runs a pack with the late Tennis's wife, and he's doing good work in keeping that alive. So between them, they still have a pack that runs, and they do a lot of work in the trophy hunting space and also in the game capture space, where they will assist with securing and darting leopard for collaring and relocation. And So it's still alive. Tienes may have gone, but they've kept the flame going.
What was the first breed? You said blue tick. What was the other?
Bleu de Gascon. So that's
How would you spell that? I'm sorry.
Bleu, one word, Bleu. Another word, De. Another word, Gascon, the region Gascony in France, Gascone, Bleu de Gascon. And that's where the blue tick, your American blue tick, comes from.
I had no idea, really. It didn't come from down south down there? Down yonder in the hollers of down south? That's what I thought.
Yeah. In terms of the American origin, yes, it probably did. But in terms of the breed reaching American shores, no, it came from France. It's a
that's cool.
French origin. Yeah,
I've never heard of that.
Fascinating. What does it look like, Aaron?
Just looks like a coonhound.
That's not a great picture of one. Hey? That is more like a coonhound.
Isn't that the worst when you're trying to show somebody a picture of a dog and it's like the worst example?
Put this into Google and this may bring you some French things. Chien, Chien. En, then Bleu de Gascon. And you might get some French sites there.
There's some short-legged varieties. Is that
the Basset?
Oh, so a Basset is related?
Blue. Yeah.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah, excellent for what you guys do. Hey, that Basset Blue is phenomenal on small game.
I might have to think about getting one.
We have too many dogs. We're always looking for something other than our dachshunds.
No need really, but yes, that's just human nature. Hey?
I think you need a dachshund for what we do, especially for what I do in my area. You have to have a dachshund it's like non-negotiable. Like today, late, just every rabbit was in a hole because it's cold and there's 18 inches of snow on the ground. So without a dachshund to go down in the little tight crevices, like you're just not catching rabbits. It's not happening. So, but to find something to root them out. Anyway, I have so many questions, so I'm just going to let Aaron keep going till I can unleash.
I want to ask you, I think this is probably at the forefront of many people's minds. And Casey and I know that it's not what people would think, but as far as the danger to the dogs is concerned, one might expect that dogs are killed by leopards constantly in pursuit of them.
No, that's actually not correct at all. We do lose dogs every year, but predominantly it's to snake. And I would say secondary, it's to infection or blood parasite. There's a lot of infections, a lot of protozoa in Africa that want to kill you, and that's humans and domestic stock alike. So we lose a lot. I lost 3 last year, all good dogs, and all to an infection called trypanosomiasis. And that's transmitted by the tsetse fly, which is like a horsefly, a biting fly. And it's a very, very, very difficult thing to combat once the infection is set. It hides in the system. It hides in the organs. And blood tests don't reveal that it's there, even though we, taking care to do that. And then suddenly it will explode. It will infect the brain. And by the time it's got there, then that's nervous system gone, sight loss, immobility of hindquarters, and the dog doesn't have much longer there. So no, the leopard does inflict some damage on most hunts, but it's typically swatting with the paws, very, very occasionally a bite. And a lot of the bites that the dogs receive will either be on the flank as they back away from the cat that's charging at them, and they might be caught up with some other dogs, or they might be caught up with some vegetation or something, and the dog might manage to get something in. Or it's on the hindquarters, which is far more dangerous because there's the spine there and a lot of nerves and mobility area. And so so they might get a bite on the hindquarters a lot. If the leopard did want to kill every dog, they could do it very easily. But their natural anti-predator behavior and their natural survival mechanisms prevent them from wanting to engage in combat. So the only real period that they would be in complete defense when they're cornered, maybe by lions or hyenas, and of course wild dogs and hounds in a sense, but they will still choose to go up a tree or to intimidate or to go into some dense bush or some rocks, and that's more common option than to just engage with their whatever's worrying them. And once they've locked in to something to try and kill it, then they engaged in that, and that opens up all the other area that they could be attacked. So I think they're fairly aware of that as well. So if they spend too much time on one individual, they don't know what else may come. And even when you look into the attacks predominantly in the safari industry, the hunting safari industry, when a wounded leopard attacks, they seem to attack several people in the group, not always just one. They could hone in on one and really do damage, but they'll attack several and then run away again. If you go in and you have a look at some of those videos that you can find on the urban leopards in India, where villagers are chasing them or the wildlife department is trying to capture them, and that you'll see that the cat will jump from 1, 2, 3. It could just focus on one. So there's these characteristics that prevent this full-on combat. The only time you rarely see it is for territorial battles, where two males climb into each other and they are so evenly matched that they do not leave until one is dead or close to death. That's the only real time they, from what I've learned, that they really, really pull the trigger and empty both barrels. So yes, we don't have that much canine fatality from leopards. We might stitch up a little bit. Antibiotics is a major part of our first aid and of our medicine chest, because the infection from the bite is more severe than the bite itself.
What is the snake that you find to be the biggest problem there for dogs specifically?
There's several, really.
I'm going to guess puff adder.
Puff adder, absolutely. Puff adder. There's a little bit more confidence that the dog can pull through from a puff adder bite because it is a cytotoxin, so it's local. There is some treatment that you can do for it. If there's a lot of venom, there's not that much you can do. And it also depends on where on the body, the dog has been bitten. If it's anywhere near the oxygen area, the breathing apparatus, it's very difficult because they blow up. They swell so much as a result from the toxin, and then that suffocates them. But mambas, cobras, those are the ones that it's very difficult to pull the dog back from. We have, but the statistical chance is quite low. We always try.
How often do you see mambas there?
It depends on where you are, but you would see them, and we're predominantly hunting in winter periods, but you would see them, once a week.
Wow. For some reason, I kind of assume mambas might be a little more rare.
No, they're quite common. Certain areas less so, but in the bushveld, they're very common. When we go up a little bit further north,
give me a mamba once.
Okay.
I've had. I'm a reptile enthusiast. Not so much these days, but when I was younger, I had a lot of venomous snakes.
What do you mean these days?
Not so much these days.
You have like a whole garage filled with reptiles right now.
Those belong to my friend, man. They're the snakes out there.
You're taking care of them.
No, he takes care of them.
Oh, never mind. I was going to say he's got like a rack system with like 400 snakes in it. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, one of my friends had what's the term? I don't know why it's slipping my mind.
He's a breeder.
No. I'm saying how they ended up there. He had very serious cancer, and it went into. He thought he was going to die, so he sold all his snakes, and he moved in with his sister to live out the rest of his days. And then his cancer went into remission. And then when it went into remission, he wanted his snakes back, and his sister said no snakes. So he asked me if he can keep them in my building. I told him, yeah. But so Casey's referring to my friend has a couple hundred snakes out in my building on my property. And I own like 2 or 3 lizards and some tortoises. So when I was younger, I used to have puff adders, gaboon vipers, monocled cobras, rattlesnakes, all that stuff. And I drew the line at mambas. This guy I knew, his wife was insisting that he gets rid of his snakes, and he offered me his black mamba. I said, no, I'm good. I do not want a black mamba. Anyway.
Yeah. I think our awareness of them and our fear for them is probably quite justified.
Crocodiles an issue with dogs?
They are. We've had some close calls. I've never had a fatality, but we've definitely had some close calls. Dogs want to drink water. They get hot, and they're not always right at your feet. And there's crocodiles everywhere. Even where you think there's no crocodiles, it could be a crocodile.
Now, I saw on your social media that you have you've hunted, and I think maybe provide some hunts for crocodiles.
We specialize in leopard, and we pretty much do that as our base and as our core competency. But on a safari, when the leopard's down, or even during the period of hunting the leopard, because it's not 24 hours of the day, then there's other game to hunt. So we hunt pretty much everything that is. I don't really hunt elephant. It's just a personal choice, but pretty much everything else we do. So yes, crocodiles, buffalo and antelope and whatever.
Why do you not hunt
a croc hunt?
Yeah, I've watched some of the long form stuff. I don't want to like keep going down rabbit holes, but I just watched an awesome video from that guy, Bomar. What's that guy's name? The Jack guy, the big Jack guy who hunts Africa nonstop. You never see? How do you not know? You got to know that guy. Bomar, the guy who got like in trouble for spearing a bear in Alaska. He's like a giant, looks like a football player, Jack, but he's like a big time hunter. He's always in Africa hunting stuff in Africa.
No, it must be on your algorithm because he's a sexy guy or something like that.
So stupid. I don't know. You're so stupid. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. The audience is like, if I was the audience, I'd be on the edge of my seat. I would be wanting to know all this stuff. So when you told us the kind of hybrid hounds that you guys are using for going after leopards, just hearing I hunt leopards with hounds, I would think that you would have something a little bit more beefy. But those are just like not regular, but it's essentially just like like a bear hound. It's not like a big, scary dog. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah, and it's correct to have that that correlation of being able to tackle this this really formidable cat. But that's not really what we're doing. We're not using the hounds as a tool to catch or a tool to kill. They really are just a kind of like a super sleuth, a super detection dog. And the main necessity for using them is tracking. Now, there is that selectively bred trait of grit, as it's well described in the hound world, and that's that they don't have the fear to back down when they do encounter that formidable animal that they've been tracking for whatever period, and that they will stay there and hold it at bay. But it is very counterproductive to have an excellent tracking dog that will go and tackle a big cat and die. And you know how much work goes into training any animal to work for you, to have it as a one-time use thing is completely a defunct system. So we're looking for a very even balance between courage and self-preservation. But that needs to be on a foundation of very, very driven tracking characteristic, tracking genetic, tracking ability. That's really what we're looking for. And we're looking for the machine, the physical machine that can support that. So the structure needs to be able to maintain that operation, that tool to operate. Let's speak of the nose, let's say, as being the final or the prime tool. We need the supporting structure, the vehicle to carry that everywhere. So we have to look at its athletic ability. We have to look at it, how well it travels. We have to look at how well it's oxygenating itself, what its endurance is, heat tolerance, feet, all these characteristics. Then how well does it cooperate with the other members of the pack? How good is it for breeding? It's such a complexity of traits, so many moving pieces, that to lose that animal, that tool that you've just spent 4 years perfecting or trying to perfect, to lose it on the first hunt is backwards. So yes, you will find, and I have used dogs that are a lot more forceful. We've used Dog Argentino. We've used another dog that's called the Boerwindhond, which is an African version of a kind of Irish wolfhound type, a little bit a sighthound. And those are very good in their own aspects for more pressure on the leopard. And certainly, the bull type animal, the bull type breed of dog is excellent for pain tolerance and for courage and for not backing down. But it is that spanner that you carry in your toolbox that you need once a year, but you still got to carry it, feed it, water it, take up space
Right.
in the vehicle, keep it in the kennels, etc., etc. So it does have its space, but it is not really a necessity. It's advantageous, but it's not a necessity. What humans have found for the whole period is that the scent hound in its really well-bred, well-trained, correct form is all you really need.
It really seems that way. Because we went, like Aaron discussed earlier, we went and hunt bears in West Virginia, and and Kirk Price, the guy we hunted with, it's like, they're going after some of the bears on the bigger side, 600 pounds, 500 pounds. Yeah. Like it could kill all those dogs if it wanted to, but it just, like you said, it just chooses to go up a tree. And it's like, if you had dogs that were immediately trying to engage with it, then it would just start killing dogs basically, and probably end up killing that specific dog.
Correct.
But I have just so many questions, because there's so much that we need to wrap our head around to understand what's going on. So your mountain lion hunting is, I'm imagining it's similar. What's the weight difference between a mountain lion, or do you even know? I don't know off the top of my head. I know a big mountain lion, like a mystical mountain lion, is 200 plus, but very rare. What is a leopard? What's a big leopard? Something you'd be proud of to put a client on? Up in
the excuse me, up in the northern ranges of the states where you're getting those really big mountain lions, they are a fair bit bigger than a big leopard. A big leopard would be 180 pounds, a really, really big leopard. And the average size leopard is actually more about 150. Now, of course, there's those monsters that come up every now and then, and there's places in the world like Sri Lanka where there's a really big-bodied leopard, and it's explained through a genetic pool. But yes, on average, the mountain lion and the leopard are very similar, behaviorally, ecologically, where they fit in the niche, what their niche is in the ecosystem. They're very, very similar. With the way they move, their breeding patterns, they're very similar. But the hunt for a leopard is a little bit more similar to the hunt for a bear. So we've found, and I've done both, we've found that that the leopard is sort of a mixture, when you're hunting it over hounds, a mixture between a bear hunt and a lion hunt. We pretty much experience the best of both of those two. So if you get your ultimate lion hunt in a dry ground condition and the hounds track it and trail and track and trail and finally get up with the cat and push it up into the rocks or a tree or whatever, and then your ultimate bear hunt where the bear is chasing the dogs around and it doesn't just want a tree, and you've got that adrenaline section where you got to get in, and there's a very real possibility that the bears poses some threat. So that's what a leopard hunt is. It's sort of the best of both worlds.
Fascinating. That's so cool. It's so neat, man. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
So now you're hunting them similar to a mountain lion hunt where you're cutting a track and putting your best dog on it to work it out and see if it's fresh?
Yes, there's many different methods in terms of what you do with the dogs. But yeah, we're looking for tracks, and almost everybody does that in a similar way. It's a sort of an equation of time and distance. The more time you can spend covering large areas, the better your chances of intercepting that right track. And we're selective for the most part. We're really just going after mature male cats. Now, if you were doing this in a depredation sense, it wouldn't really matter. So some communities where the leopard are a problem for valuable game or for livestock or whatever, then it doesn't matter. Dead cats, what the objective is. But in the trophy hunting industry, in the paid hunting industry, we're looking for the most aged male that we could find, which typically is the largest. And we're not looking at that just from the bravado of the biggest one. It actually has very, very solid conservation parallels, that the removal of that male has the least impact on the remaining population. So if you to take that male that is held the territory for even just a year, the removal of him is not nearly as disruptive to the species, even locally, as it would if you were to take an adult female.
I would assume that when you take a large male out, another male will just move into his territory.
Exactly.
I feel the same way catching. We were talking earlier, and it's ridiculous to compare them, but fox squirrels.
A big old bull fox squirrel, right?
Bucks. I want a buck fox squirrel. When I catch a female, it hurts me because they're rare animals. We have a strict limit on how many we can catch per day and then per season. So it's only 10 per season, and it's 1 per day. So when I catch a female, it hurts me. But that's like you had said, and Casey said this to me originally, and it helped, was you can, when you tree a predator with hounds, you can take a look at what you have there in that tree, and you don't have to shoot it.
Absolutely. You don't have to. In most cases, you don't have to shoot it. You can gather the hounds, not as simply as you would under the tree of a mountain lion, but you certainly can recall the hounds and leave that animal to go. And I think it is one of the things that is slightly misrepresented or not well understood. But the sentiment of us, all of us hunters, is, we completely subscribe to conservation, engage with it, albeit maybe from a slightly selfish perspective. But we want all those animals to survive tomorrow. Because we want to hunt them tomorrow again. We want our sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughter, everybody to be able to hunt them again and again. So that idea of wanting to go out and just remove everything we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And I've never met a hunter. I'm sure they are, but I've never met one that has that mentality.
I think maybe some of the wolf people in like Colorado probably feel like that.
Understood.
They're not very.
Why, though, right?
Those guys are not very happy right now.
Yeah.
No, it's fascinating. So you're cutting a track. You're cutting a pug mark, right? That's what
Correct.
it's called. That's the correct term. And if it's not big, you're not cutting the dogs loose. Are you rigging dogs? Because I learned that term in West Virginia. Are you rigging? Is that a tool in your arsenal?
We don't do it in the sense that it's a planned action. So I've seen that. I've never experienced it personally, but I've seen that where guys will have a platform on top of the dog box or a platform on the bonnet of the vehicle, and they'll have identified in their pack one or two of the dogs that really open immediately on any scent, and learn to trust them. And so, yes, I understand the rigging. We will be driving around and suddenly the dog box will blow up. But we have about 1,000 different predators, and a lot of them leave, to our understanding, at least a similar scent signature. So we could have, a variety of different cats, sometimes even hyena, the dogs might blow up. And we do game-proof our hounds as best as we can. But there's just such a diversity of game in Africa. It's very difficult to get them as broken and as proof as you might in the States, where there's fewer diversity of animals. So we can't trust our dogs entirely. If we hear the dogs open in the back of the truck, we'll go out immediately and try to find a track. But we may be in a section where we couldn't see a track visually for the rest of our lives. There's just too much vegetation, whatever it might be. And so we couldn't responsibly just drop the dogs. Certainly not in the sense where we operate, in that every one of our hunts is funded by a traveling hunter, funded by somebody who's taken a section of their busy life out to come and enjoy an adventure in Africa. And if we spend too much time chasing ghosts, yes, it's enjoyable, but there is still a pressure point around, if we fail, at least we failed trying correctly, accurately, responsibly. So not only do we have the responsibility to the wildlife, the dogs, but we do to the person who's funding the whole enterprise.
100%. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's a whole nother wrinkle that gets added to it. Because
yes.
Go ahead, Aaron.
So Casey and I can plan our trip. What are we looking at cost wise to come hunt leopards with hounds?
Yeah, it's I think it's underpriced.
Probably expensive, and it probably still is underpriced.
Yeah. Leopard tags in areas where you can hunt it legitimately in very, really wild, open areas are becoming less and less available. The population of Africa is exploding. Encroachment is a major issue. People need food. Mining areas need to expand. Roads, electricity. You understand what I'm saying. So a leopard safari currently, and that would be excluding any of your flights, and it would be excluding pre and post expenses. But the actual safari period is including that one trophy, the leopard, is probably going to be in the region currently market price about 35. 35K.
That's less than I thought it would be.
I was going to say, what were you going to say, Aaron? I'll tell you what I was going to say.
I was going to say 50, 60,000.
I was going to say 50,000 too. Yeah, I was going to say 50.
And that's probably where it should be. Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And how challenging is it for an American to get the skin and the skull back to America?
Currently in leopard, it's not. Currently, it's actually quite easy. The CITES import-export permit is quite effectively achieved, especially if you go through an agent, and they're not really that expensive. They know the way. It's they've got the conveyor belt going. So that's not the difficulty. Getting the skin from the camp through the whole channel to an export port is typically what takes time and which is a little bit complex. But none of those complexities does the international hunter have to deal with. All of that is taken care of by the operator, by the trophy export agent, the shipping agent, the importing agent, and that. So there's a cost set to that, and that is excluding the 35 that I spoke about now. But no, at the moment, it is not that difficult. There's still a very generous quota of leopard throughout its range in the southern African countries. And literally hundreds of tags are still available. And that's probably why the price is still sitting around where it is. But eventually that supply-demand scale will level a little more, because it's inevitable that we're going to lose more leopard range. It's not that conservation is not being actioned in all of its range. It's just that the range is shrinking and it's going to continue to shrink. So we will see fewer tags available probably in the next decade to 2 decades, and the price will skyrocket. But right now, it's quite easy to get your skins back. It's just a waiting game. It's probably 12 to 24 months, and everything lands on your door.
Okay. All right. So, Aaron, we got to start saving our pennies.
I don't have to save. I got it right here.
Good. Hey, this must be nice, man. Must be nice.
I'll send you a quote.
Well, listen, there's something to be said for marketing. If you want to get those prices up, you got to increase the demand. To increase the demand, you have to market. So sometimes inviting, large successful podcasts, hosts, we can get the word out.
I see where you're going, man.
I'm just saying stuff like that helps. I'm just throwing that out there.
Makes sense. I hear you.
But I understand what you're saying about what we would call here in the States, we call it urban sprawl.
Correct.
And it never seems to stop. But one thing about, and I can speak for over here with mountain lions, and actually, listen, my algorithm can speak for leopards too, because I got quite the algorithm. It's either Ukrainians getting blown up by drones, okay, Indian people getting electrocuted, okay, or smashed, hanging out of a train, getting smashed by a telephone pole, okay, and then number 3 is leopards killing dogs on people's front steps in the middle of a neighborhood at night.
Yes.
So it seems like leopards they can really adapt well, but there's going to be obviously a learning curve for each generation of leopard as the sprawl spreads. The numbers will decrease, but then I think that they are because listen, there's no other cats in the world. And I'm not an expert. You're the expert, but I'm just going to say this and you correct me if I'm wrong. There's no other cats in the world besides mountain lions and leopards that are as widespread. I think that they are the most widespread cats in the world. Because in the States, it's Alaska, Canada, all the way down in Argentina. I'm watching, my wife is from Argentina, so we're watching nature documentaries of mountain lions killing those alpaca things, and they're swinging their heads around trying to get them off. And then you got leopards all the way up, snow leopards all the way down to India and probably even more. So it seems like they really know how to get the job done when they are feeling the pressure.
Absolutely. So, if you look at the adaptability of that mountain lion, you can get it from those real arid areas where the cats are lean and skinny, but they have been surviving there for how long? And you move up into the big, deep areas of British Columbia or whatever, and they just change their body size and their hunting tactics and that, but it's pretty much the same animal, really. It's just a change of the mold slightly to fit the environment. Yeah, so they are so super adaptable.
As far as the ability to hunt them, if they're urban, you're not really gonna have that ability.
That's true.
We won't. I think. But Gavin will. Because they're in Gavin when they're ripping people's poodles off their porches.
True. Yeah. But typically the voting public in those areas don't want to see any lethal form of control. They want to see.
You would think they would change tune after their beloved pet was killed.
Yeah, after their kid or their, like that. that one situation in California. All it takes is a couple little situations, and then they start talking about it again, like that horrific story, which really irritated me. And listen, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I would have done this, I would have done that. But that horrific story that Meat Eater put out, I think it was like last year, of those two brothers. Aaron, are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar. Not necessarily. Keep going.
So it's two brothers in California, right, where it's all illegal. You can't hunt them out.
Okay. Yeah, I do know.
Jumps on the one brother's back, starts tearing him up. The other brother starts hitting it with a stick, turns on that brother. And then the brother that was originally attacked, like, tried to help, but then went to go get help. And listen, the story, the way the kid was speaking and explaining the story, I was like, I got two sons, so I was getting like a little, it was upsetting to hear. But I'm like, I got two other brothers. There's three of us brothers and a sister. And if I saw an animal on my brother, there's no way I'm leaving. Like, I'm not leaving, and I'm a 17, 18-year-old kid. I'm not leaving. I'm going to beat that thing with a stick. I'm not going to leave. Now, it's easy to say that, I guess. But anyway, long story short, after that kid got killed and partially consumed, then they're now, oh, maybe we need to reopen the hunt in California. Maybe there's too many mountain lions. So it's like, it just takes a couple situations like that, and then they start changing their tune,
That's what we need. Just more children to die, and everything will be better.
I hate to say it this way, in most situations, it really takes a child to die for people to change stuff. Most of the laws we have, most of the stupid labels on boxes of different items is because a child died, and then now they have to put it on the box because somebody got sued into oblivion, which makes sense, I guess. You know what I mean? Do not give this tiny object to your toddler. It's like, yeah, obviously. Anyway.
All right.
Okay, moving on.
Gavin, I want to ask you about firearms. What are you using to take the leopard down?
A leopard, like a mountain lion, is not a very difficult animal to kill. Soft skin, very complex nervous system, so it responds to hydrostatic shock. You don't need a big bad bullet. You're just a well-placed bullet and the softest that's available. You don't want it exiting, and just leave all the energy in the body and do as much damage. And you can switch a leopard off quite quickly. So really, any of the 3.0 calibers, almost any of that is more than sufficient. However, in almost all the legislation in Southern Africa, any dangerous game animal has to be shot with a caliber that produces a minimum energy component. And typically what you'll find is that anything that would be lighter than a 375 H&H is not going to meet those energy minimums. So that is in our ordinances and in our legislation, the minimum caliber in most cases that you can use. So it's an overkill. You don't need that. But that's generally what most leopard will be shot with. Now, interestingly, there is, in a lot of these countries, the allowance for bow hunting. So you can take a leopard with a bow, but you couldn't shoot it with a 30-06. So you understand it. It's just a lot of it is semantics, but the law is what it is, and they are always changing. But right now, that's what it is. Personally, I don't carry that myself. I carry a bigger caliber, but that's predominantly so that if we get into a situation where there's aggressive elephants, aggressive buffalo, lion, whatever, that I have the ability to stop an attack, because it is my duty to protect the hunter that's with me, my staff, the hounds, myself. So we have to carry something a little bit bigger. I carry a 416 Rigby, which even yet is a little bit too underpowered and really not the right tool. It is a better caliber for if you were just hunting Cape buffalo and that. It's not really the stopping caliber. But I have to balance between the weight of the rifle because I'm running behind the dogs a lot. And how often am I actually going to get into the situation, which is, maybe just once a year, once a season, that we have to protect somebody against, and sometimes not even in the season. So that's sort of where we stand. But yeah, short answer, anything in the 3-0 range, and honestly a 2-2 in, a heart shot or a head shot, which you don't want to do because you want to preserve the skull. But for a killing power, small caliber is fine for that soft skin animal.
So you're just the shot, because like you'd said, you don't want to ruin the skull, just somewhere in the vitals. Is that
we don't aim for that. We aim for the high shoulder shot. So if you have a look, and it's not always possible, but because a lot of the cats are treed or bayed on the ground, and it's about a 50-50 ratio, you have the option to sort of move the hunter into the correct position, or put yourself in the correct position. And we're looking for the high shoulder shot. If you look at the cross section of a leopard, you'll see that the spine dips quite a bit. There's a fair amount, a chunk of flesh on the neck. That's one of the anchor points of muscle. And just on the high point of the shoulder at a level cross section, and you have to make these mental adjustments on where it's positioned, if it's facing you and that. But we're going to break the spine at that point. And any bullet placed, even if it's not hitting the spine directly, the diffraction of the bullets and of the bone and everything, that really causes a lot of damage in that area, and it switches the leopard off almost immediately. And that's what we want. We want the cat to come out of the tree or to be dispatched on the ground immediately, because a wounded leopard is then much more dangerous for the hounds. Then we've converted it from being in a preservation state to being in a complete fight state. There's no more flight option. It's now a fight to the death. And the first hound is really going to take a hammering. So if the leopard can be put out immediately, if you shoot it in the heart lungs, it's going to expire, but it's not going to expire immediately. It could, but in my experience, they still have enough fight in them and adrenaline pumping to go a little while, and that's the danger period. And so we try and avoid that. It's not always possible, but that's the intention, at least.
Let's talk about Rigby for a second.
Sure.
So for those of you out there, we had mentioned earlier Jim Corbett. He killed the man-eating leopard of Rudraprayag with a Rigby.
270, yeah. 275, is it? Or
I'm not sure the caliber. He was gifted the rifle by the governor of his region in India after killing the man-eating tigress of Champawat, and she had killed over 300 people. So after that, and he probably killed her with a very cheap rifle, but afterwards he was gifted this very, very nice rifle. The 416, that's like a $20,000 rifle.
It would. And when I say the 416 Rigby, I don't carry it in its original British manufacturer. I just carry it in that caliber. So we have the manufacturer that all my rifles are from is CZ Bruno, and they have really stood the test of time in Africa. It's not the only one. There's lots of other very good firearm manufacturers, but that's just
because I'd wondered about being in Africa carrying a $20,000 rifle around, how practical that was.
There's many, many professional hunters that are carrying firearms of that value, if not more. But they're typically going to be double rifles, and they'll be sometimes custom made. And it's your primary tool. It's your tool. And it is, in a lot of cases, a life-saving tool, not only your own, but for others. So the more in tune you are with that weapon, that's just fundamental. That is the pretty much the real nuts and bolts of that career choice is to know that you can operate a firearm very, very proficiently. So yeah, why not be carrying the best?
I see no reason not to. And if you're spending that kind of money to go on a safari, why not have a very nice rifle?
Absolutely. And while you can have the same kind of function in a less expensive firearm, with everything in life, if you're prepared to pay a slight more premium, in most cases you're going to get more functions, more reliability, more fine tuning. So yeah, I hear you.
That's a dream rifle. I joke with my wife that when somebody, a loved one passes away, it'd be a great way to honor them with a Rigby rifle, so their memory could live on through that rifle, and then maybe a safari to go along with it.
Well, so they go hand in hand. How would you use the rifle any other way?
Exactly. I wanted to ask
he's
you.
He's going to shoot a big old buck. Fox squirrel.
Yeah, a buck fox squirrel with a 416 Rigby.
Yeah.
So, Gavin, I wanted to ask you. You had mentioned carrying the 416 for dangerous situations. I'm sure there's a lot, but are there any particular ones that come to mind that you care to share with us about close calls, be it with I guess poachers in the field, could be other wildlife in the field? I'm sure you get lions.
I want to hear about lions. That's got to be sketchy because the scents are probably similar. And if your pack runs into a pride of lions, that's got to be a bad situation, I would imagine.
Yeah. We have, every year we have touch and go moments. We had one with a buffalo this previous season, 2025 season. But if you want to hear about lions, a memory that comes to mind is I was hunting in the Zimbabwe region, an area called the Gwai River, which is bordering very closely to the Hwange National Park. The locals call it Hwange National Park. It's spelled Hwang, Hwange National Park. And there's the park core, which is a non-consumption area, and then there's a surrounding area which is demarcated to hardwood forestry, particularly there. And then on the outskirts of that, you'll have what were previously sort of agricultural areas, but have been converted into wildlife use zones, where you would have either photographic tourism or consumptive tourism, of trophy hunting tourism. And anyway, so I was operating in several connected blocks there, massive area, and we had picked up the track of a nice male leopard in the morning, but it was a little late in the morning. It was probably about 6 a.m. And the dogs worked him up until about 11, but it was just too hot, and there's nothing we can do there. But we had left him in a block that was fairly close to that boundary with that forestry concession. And there's a main road that runs along there, dirt road, but it's an access road for traffic there. Not general public traffic. I mean, people that are moving in the, between the different areas. And I didn't really want him to cross there. So we returned that evening as early as possible. And we were driving along this fairly wide dirt road, quite nice and powdery, because we'd been dragging the road a lot with branches to make sure we pick up the tracks nicely. And of course, we picked up a whole pride of lions, tracks of a whole pride of lions that were moving along there. And the pride had cub tracks in as well. And at that stage, I was driving a Land Rover Defender, a 110, and on the bull bar of that, I had a tracker seat where my tracker would sit. So he's got a front row view of what's happening on the road ahead, and it's the most effective way of tracking and picking up tracks and detecting, and also makes for speedy tracking. If a cat's moving away from us, he can sit there and watch, because we never put the dogs down on the road. We wait until it leaves the road for scent reasons. So it's very effective to have a guy sitting there. And that Defender is a very short bonnet. So when you sit quite high, so you're always crouching over the steering wheel, looking over the bonnet to try and have a look at the tracks. And there was one track in there that kept bothering me, and I'd slow down and I'd stop and I'd ask him, "Isn't that the leopard?" He said, No, it's just the cubs. It's just the cubs. And we kept on going. And then we came to the point where the lions had entered the road. So this is the first place, because, we'd been moving towards them. Their track had been coming to us. We weren't following them. We had intersected probably where we had first picked up their tracks. They had moved off the road, hearing us coming. It was very fresh. Anyway, so at the point where they had entered the road, boom, there we found this leopard track. So what I'd been seeing had been this male cat, which just happened to be very similar size of the cubs. So we had to turn around and then backtrack ourselves through this whole pride and find where the leopard had left, which took a lot of time. It was very complex. You can, it's almost identical tracks, but we managed it, and we got to where the leopard had left the road and the lions had kept on going. Anyway, so we readied ourselves and we put the dogs down, and off they went. And we got so separated there that the rest of the hunting party and myself were so far apart, we didn't even have radio comms anymore. So I couldn't get a hold of them. And this leopard just wouldn't tree. It was about 2 a.m. in the morning, and he was just running around and he just wouldn't tree. And I was waiting for them to come in and it took so long. Anyway, finally, they got to where we were, and we managed to kill the cat and carried it back out to the side of the road. I did have a dog Argentina with me on that hunt, and that leopard, just as he had been shot, which wasn't a great shot, he bit into the doggo, and he broke his canine it embedded into this eye socket bone of the dog, and it put the doggo's lights out as well. He also passed out from this shock. But I had to pull that canine out with my Leatherman. And so we actually wound up carrying a doggo and a leopard to the side of the road. And the doggo woke up finally, but he wasn't awake when we moved out. And so I left the party there, and I went back to go fetch a vehicle to come and bring them and then head back to camp with everything. And we walked back on the road. But what we had done when we were in pursuit of the leopard is inadvertently a massive loop around and then back towards the road, but we had come ahead of that pride of lions without knowing. So when I got on the road, we were walking back, and it was myself and the Zimbabwean professional hunter. I'm not a licensed professional hunter in Zimbabwe, so I have to, I can still run my hounds, but I can't lead a hunt legally. And so he and I were walking back to go to get the vehicles, and I had one of those 3-cell mag lights. You remember they took those mag lights that took the big batteries, yeah. And
that you can hit somebody over the head with.
If you're a policeman, you can hit somebody. And I noticed these eyes in the distance, and there was a lot of them. The reflection of the eyes, and there was a lot of them. I thought, here we're about to walk into a whole herd of buffalo. And I shifted our movement onto the left ridge of the road. And as we got closer, I started to see this change of level in the eyes. So head going up, head going down. And at that moment, it clicked to me. This is not buffalo. This is this whole pride of lions. And there they were lying on the side of the road, pretty much in ambush. And I've got a trail of hounds with me, tired, worn out, loping along, not listening nicely anymore. And it's just me with a revolver and this professional hunter, and he probably only had 3 bullets in the 375. So we completely outgunned, overpowered, but we've now engaged. We're now in a space where I can't run away or anything. All they'll do, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. This is their prime time. They don't even think that we can see them. Lion behavior changes a lot from daytime to nighttime. In the day, they They fairly cowardice at night. They can get a lot more brave. And so we pretty much walked into this trap. And as we were slowly sneaking past them, I was keeping the eyes on them. And they're probably 25 meters away, 25 yards. And I can see the heads, and I can see one or two coming forward closer, and that, and getting very nervous. And some of my dogs had come ahead, and where the lions had left the road again to sit in ambush for us, there my lead dogs pick up and they want to start hunting the lions because it all, and boo, he opens up, and then the lions start coming at us. And I shout to this guy, shoot, and he just shoots randomly towards them. And we just had enough to keep them back. And I finally made enough distance slowly, because you can't run distance, shouting at the dogs, making lots of noise. And finally we made back, and we got into a little bit of a trot. We kept checking over our shoulder. We got back to the vehicles, threw the dogs in quickly, drove back to fetch the guys, and saw how these lions had followed us a good ways back to the trucks, just out of distance. So we got very lucky. I think if there'd been a big male, we might have been in a different situation. But it was females, sub-adults, cubs. So I think if there was a big male or a couple of males, they definitely would have gone for the dogs.
Oh my gosh. That's terrifying.
That's nightmare stuff.
And the fact that you were shooting in their direction and it didn't phase them, that makes it even more scary.
Yeah.
Because you would think shooting a couple shots would kind of snap them out of it and get them to leave, but they just...
No, they just lions back off slightly. Yeah.
Yeah, lions just... that's probably the most scary thing to run into. Like, everyone says grizzly bear, right? This and that. But a pride of lions at night, 3 a.m, that's the last thing you want to see without an AR-15.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you're holding a little 3.57 revolver with 5 shots left, it's not very comfortable.
As far as predators go in Africa, that probably is the scariest thing to run into.
Look, a lion will kill you. A leopard is unlikely it's going to kill you. It has the ability to, but it's unlikely, and there's very few cases of that. But a lion can literally kill you with a bite.
Now, would you rather walk through a grassland inhabited by lions at night, or swim across a body of water at night in Africa?
I'll walk through a grassland with all the lions in Africa before swimming across a body of water.
I'm with you, man. Aaron loves all that
crocodiles.
He loves sharks, crocodiles. I would rather get ripped apart on land than sucked under the water where I can't see anything coming.
Swimming Absolutely. Across a body of water in Africa at night is probably a death sentence, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's sure. I mean, the statistical chance is really high that you're going to wind up in trouble. Really high.
Could you imagine the fear pounding through your heart as you're doing that?
Yeah. No.
But I will say this: I would rather be killed by a crocodile in the water than a shark in the water, because the crocodile wants to pull you under and incapacitate you and then rip you apart. So you're going to basically feel an insane amount of pressure pulled under the water, and then you're going to drown. A shark's going to come and
option
rip.
C for neither.
Yeah. Well, I when I was young, I used to swim in the ocean, and I've become I have a condition now where if it goes past my waist, I start getting all squirrely and I move back.
Yeah.
Because I just can't anymore. Because I'm they're in
and
here.
Past your waist is still pretty shallow too.
Dude, I'm it's 2 feet deep, dude. I'm out, dude. They only attack in 4 feet, but 2 feet is my waist, so I'm out.
Today, my friend Bob Pendergrass, he's another short guy. I pushed a barbed wire fence down and I said, "Here, Bob, you can even step over this." And he said, "Normally I just walk right under it."
And listen, Bob's shorter than me, so leave me alone.
Is he?
Yes. Don't be a douche. Actually, yeah. I don't know.
We might be the same height. Yeah,
we might be the same height.
So
whatever.
Scary stuff. But I think that there's something admirable, like we said earlier, about confronting all that stuff. If you're going out there to take a life, to hunt, to kill, I think subjecting yourself to some danger is should be part of it.
Yeah, I think that it's just it's a necessary factor. It's not the same without.
So, Casey, unless you had more questions about leopards, I wanted to at the very least touch on some other game in Africa while we have Gavin here.
No, I could just keep going. So yeah, we could transfer. Otherwise, it's gonna turn into just too much because I have a lot of questions.
So I was surprised.
A lot of it's not relevant. It's like personal. It's not relevant. You know what I mean? It's just not.
Yeah.
It's stupid. So
Gavin, what would you do?
yeah.
I wanted to ask you because I was surprised how I'm just going to call it affordable some African hunts are.
Yeah.
Like the plains package, things like that. Seems pretty reasonable. As far as the what is it? The they call it the Big Five. Is that
Big
it?
Five, yeah.
As far as the Big Five is concerned, the Cape Buffalo would be the most affordable, right?
Yes, there's many of them. There's many regions to hunt them. They've been relocated, translocated, very effectively bred. You can hunt them behind high wire. You can hunt them in big open conserved areas. They reach a certain population point where even natural predation is not really an effective or great effect to their dynamic and their population numbers. So yes, a buffalo in the right conditions is of the dangerous game probably the most accessible and most affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And really is one of the most fun as well.
Yeah.
They probably kill more people than leopards, right?
Oh, certainly.
100%.
Much more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That seems like something that seems like something I can imagine myself doing that sometime in the near future.
You can't stop at charging buffalo as easily as you can stop at charging leopard.
I don't think either of them would be very easy to stop.
You're also looking for option C there.
Okay, so I'm just astounded by the amount of game when I look at Africa. I've got a book about African game animals, and it seems like there's literally hundreds of animals that are considered game species there. What are some of your favorite things to hunt other than leopard?
Oh, buffalo is definitely the next on the list there. Anything that you're tracking, I think, and it's not limited to that, but from a personal perspective, anything that you must track to catch up to then engage with a stalk or a plan or whatever, that is a very full hunt. That process is something that I really enjoy. So that where you might just sit at a place and glass out at something and opportunistically see a big kudu on a hill and then engage or action a stalk is less enjoyable as if you were to pick up the tracks from a waterhole and follow those tracks until you actually catch up to that animal and then put in your stalk and shoot plan or whatever that is. So anything in that sense is, and there's many. Eland is an excellent one. Anything that you can track, and you can shoot porcupines, you can shoot civets, you can shoot honey badgers, you can shoot ostriches, you can shoot almost anything in South Africa if you want, and a lot of collectors do, and it's good. It's important that they're the guys that want to do that, and full applause to that, because we need to have the funds coming in to conserve these areas, and this is the stock on our shelves to sell. So you got to sell all stock, not just one or two. But yeah, anything that you got to track, those are the real hunts to me.
Mm-hmm. So, what is the best tasting African game meat in your opinion?
So much, man. Reed buck is very nice. Common reed buck, prepared well. Eland steaks are great. But anything, man. Kudu, impala, or any of the antelope, almost any of the antelope.
Have you ever eaten leopard?
I have. Just to say that I have, but I have no intention of doing it again. And
they say mountain lion is
I don't
really
even
good.
eat pork, so.
Oh, okay. Casey?
No, I was going to say the antelope would probably be my first choice, but also, mountain lion, they say, is like pork. If you cook it correctly, it tastes delicious. You just got to cook it right. But Gavin doesn't eat pork.
So did leopard have a bad flavor?
It was that. It's a kind of light pinkish kind of meat, whitish to pinkish meat. It's fairly rubbery. It's not a full, rich taste, slightly oily. It's not sort of anything that I would put on a menu anywhere.
But if you don't eat pork and you don't appreciate pork, then that makes sense that you would say that, because you were just describing pork. And I'm not like a pork chop guy. Like, I don't really like pork chops, but if you get a good pork chop and you cook it right, it's really nice.
Yeah, well, when me and Casey get up with you and do our leopard hunt, we'll have to try.
Yeah, Aaron's going to shoot a leopard, and I'm going to shoot a porcupine with my budget.
Porcupine tastes better than leopard.
But I'll come over. I'll shoot some baboons. I'll shoot a porcupine, and I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll just listen. I'll come and just film the hunts. I would.
Casey,
how much is it?
I'll hold the rifle, and you can put your hand on the rifle when I pull the trigger.
We can shoot it together. But I need Gavin's got to put he's got to pull out a stool so I can get up high enough to put my hand on it. Gavin, is it I'm asking in all seriousness, is it a possibility? Aaron's laughing. You think it's funny. Is it a possibility for me and Aaron to come and participate in one of these hunts and film it and document it and do an in-person interview with you? Or is that something that's a no because of the danger factor?
No, not at all. I mean, it all depends on situation and circumstance and where we are and who's going to be actually doing the hunting. And so there's a few working parts there, but no, we have observers on most hunts. Okay. And I do run a program where even volunteers can come out. We need a lot of help with the hounds. We need a lot of help with the equipment. A lot of the behind the scenes stuff takes up time that keeps us away from being able to do some of the, necessary work, engaging with the hunters, planning for the next day, logistics and things. So a lot of the background stuff, I have regularly guys that come out and they pay a small amount just to cover pretty much their cost being there, and they volunteer their time and they get to experience the hunt for that. But they it's sort of like a working deal. So I'm not suggesting that for you, but what I'm saying is that yes, we facilitate other people around the hunt, and it's never or very rarely just one person involved. And there's normally several people.
Oh, I'm in. I mean, I can tie off some hounds. I just got to warn you that I got a strong hand though. little too strong sometimes with my little dogs. I got to be careful. No, so, I'm in. Aaron, we're going to book our flights. We're going to come, we're going to film the whole thing.
When I do my leopard hunt, you can come with me as a guest.
I'll be an observer.
Yeah. Gavin, I wanted to ask you,
sure.
Before we wrap this up, the success rate. So I know someone who knows someone that said they've been to Africa 4 times on leopard hunts and have yet to get a leopard.
So no, that's not an uncommon statement at all. There are people that have some of the best access to areas, the financial abilities, the everything, that have gone to Africa 4 times and not shot a leopard. And there's famous authors. I think Craig Boddington is one who states that it took him numerous attempts to actually connect with the leopard. So It is not an easy animal to hunt. It's probably the most elusive of certainly the big five and one of the most elusive of all African game. But using people that are very proficient with it in the right areas and undoubtedly make use of hounds definitely increases your chances. Most hunts in Africa, statistically, by a large portion, I would say probably more than 90%, are done over bait. And bait hunting is a very reactionary form of hunting. It's not a very proactive form. So you have to wait for that leopard to present itself as opposed to being able to go out and pursue it. And so that affects success, because if the right cat just doesn't come in at the right time and date, a lot of guys will have camera traps footage of a leopard on bait, and then the client flies in. You don't see him for 2 weeks, and then when he flies out, suddenly the cat returns back into the area. And there's a lot of reason around that, and it's quite easily explained, but it is lengthy. I won't do that now. But you're looking at a animal that is inhabiting, maybe in very good areas, 40, 50,000 hectares. So 100,000 acres. And you're looking for that one particular. I'm not saying that's the only leopard in there, but that's generally the only harvestable leopard in there. And you do get much more densely populated areas, and you get more scarcely populated areas as well. So the ability to try or the ability to take action when you do intersect with the right one at the right space in time is a real factor. So being able to use hounds to put it down on the track is going to improve your success rate dramatically. And they're not used that much in Africa. As I said, maybe 10% of all hunts, leopard hunts conducted in Africa are using hounds, probably less.
I suspect that was the case.
Yeah. So that's why there's a lot of repeat. And the industry, in a sense, does need that. It does need you to, people to be engaged repetitively. It is a little, certainly in the dangerous game realm, there aren't that many people in the world that are going to spend that kind of money for a short 2-week vacation. So the clientele base that pool is fairly limited. So it's good for the industry if guys are returning more than once to try and achieve their dream. Most pricing will be laid out where you're paying a day rate, you're paying, a rate to the government to be there, and then you're purchasing your tag. And the tag fee is probably the cheapest part of that deal. So businesses survive by having bums in beds, less so by just shooting animals. Now, obviously, if you go back to the marketing perspective, you're not going to be selling a lot of leopard hunts if you're never actually shooting a leopard. But there is an accepted industry understanding that you may go several times for a leopard. And it might be slightly inflated than what it needs to be. If we had half of those hunts being conducted by hounds, the success rate would definitely be greater.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on that because, so in New York State, where I live in the States, you can't use bait to hunt bears. People still harvest bears, but it's basically just by, setting up where they're moving through and getting lucky a lot of the time. In New Jersey, you can bait. And in West Virginia, you can use hounds. And I mean, we were texting back and forth with Kirk Price. And I'm like, the last bear I killed before that hunt in West Virginia was in 2015 in upstate New York. And I got lucky basically. And I'm like, so he's like, oh yeah, we killed 5 this past week. We killed 2 yesterday. I'm like, is it even worth coming? Like what? He's like, oh no, come on out. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. And their area is just saturated with bears. But if you're just sitting on the ground waiting for one to walk by or in a tree stand, you could be there for a month waiting for one to walk by.
Yeah.
Aaron, how many bears were killed on that what 3-day trip? Like 5?
Something like that.
Yours, mine, a kid killed his, and then a nut. Was it 3 bears or 4 bears?
It was 3 bears in 2 days.
3 bears in 2 days, and it was 2 days. We killed 2 in 1 day, and then I killed mine the next day, and mine wooden tree, so I had to shoot him on the ground. And Kirk was gracious enough to let me shoot him on the ground because I have superior marksmanship. And but yeah, it's just like when you add the hounds to it, you're just the efficiency. So now, if I was like one of these wealthy dentists, right? The whole stereotypical thing, and I had money to spend and I want a leopard. My successor, I would imagine that calling you, this is not a marketing pitch, but I'm just logically, I would call you because I'm like, this guy's we're going to cut a track of a big leopard, and our chances are higher than if we just set up a bait station and wait for 2 weeks waiting for this thing to show up. Is that just because is that a marketing issue, an educational thing for the clientele base? Like, what do you think? Or is it a stigma that people are kind of wary of it and they don't want to do that?
Yeah, it's some of all of that, actually. And the stigma factor definitely is a contributing one. Hound hunting has been portrayed in the African sense as a shortcut. But anybody who's worked with hounds, falcons, whatever it is, understand that it's not a shortcut. It's just a different tool. It's a different dimension. It's not flawless. It's not 100% guarantee. We don't have a 100% success rate. We have a high success rate, but we don't have a 100% success rate. And I hope we never do. It's hunting, man. It's hunting. We can be on the tracks of a leopard and still lose it. We can have the client see the leopard and still lose it. We can be on the tracks of a male and tree a female. We can be in a space where a leopard that is the target one just doesn't pitch up for 10 days. It's still hunting, and it's very important to keep that in mind. But the stigma attached to hound hunting in the African sense has definitely prevented it from becoming more of a mainstream offering. So a lot of safari business is done on the convention floors where American, German, Canadian, French, whatever it may be, hunters can come to a trade show, meet and greet the people that they would potentially go on safari with, and talk to them about it. Walk away, with a commitment, with a check or whatever it might be. And mostly the people on those showroom floors are not pushing hounds. Even in our legislation, we've had very anti-hound hunting sentiment. And it's because not everybody can run hounds. It's a lifestyle. You guys know how it is with your birds and your dogs. It's a lifestyle choice. It's very demanding. You don't really get a day off. It's, obviously when we move into the commercial realm, we start to pay people to do these things. But generally speaking, it's not something you can pack away into a trunk and then pull it out next season. It's not a rifle or a truck or even a hunting lease. The cabin, you can lock the doors and come back 3 months later when the snow falls. So it's very limiting for people to get into it. But you can still have a leopard tag on your concession. It might be one a year. You're not going to keep a pack of hounds for that. And so it's very easy to work against the hounds because you may be able to sell that leopard tag to 1 or 2 guys or 3 guys. And they'll come in and they'll shoot other game, but not a leopard. And 1 out of the 3 takes the leopard. And that's fairly acceptable industry standards. Not everyone is going to get a leopard. So there's a lot of behind the scenes gearing against hounds. And then there's a lot of, falsification around it. It's super dangerous. You're definitely going to get bitten. A lot of guys are steered away from that. Some people that are coming out there are on very important roles. They have a lot of responsibility, or they're parents, or they have business commitments, or whatever it might be. They're not in a position to put themselves in undue danger. The scale of how much do I need the leopard as opposed to what's my risk of being bitten. They'll be turned away from that quite easily by someone who's going to say, no, we're sitting in a blind. You're 100% safe, man. That leopard doesn't even know we're there. It's 70 yards away. So there's a lot of that. And then, to be fair, we haven't really had a tradition of hounds and cats in Africa as there is in the States. Our history with hounds is very complete, and very early on in the settlement in Southern Africa, particularly in coastal South Africa, hounds were part of the agricultural landscape. They were depredation tools. They were used for, or dogs were used for guarding and used for herding, and that. So we have the same pioneer association that has translated or transitioned through the different generations to modern. But it's always sort of been in the box of hounds are more of a depredation tool than a sporting tool. Where, interestingly, falconry is never in Southern Africa. It's always been a real elite sporting association. So falconry has never been exposed to the kind of pushback that hounds have, because hounds were just earmarked. We use these to chase jackal and caracal that are killing our sheep and our goats, and it played out that way. There's also been a lot of biological restriction against the use of hounds down in the coastal areas where they were brought in by those European cultures who brought it from the old country in. When you move further north in Africa, you start to get a whole lot of different type of disease and exposure that domestic stock just were unable. I mean, even cattle were unable to survive. And in a sense, that has kept a lot of Africa wild, because it hasn't been able to be settled just because people die there and domestic stock die there. There's just too much that wants to kill you. Even malaria has been a very restricting factor. So that culture didn't drift very further north out of the southern regions of South Africa, where even historically leopard populations were not as high as further north on the continent. They were there, but they're not in the kind of numbers, at least to my research, than what you find as you start to move further north. And then the final factor that I think has really been the limitation of hounds being more mainstream and more of a marketable or historically marketed tool is that leopard will feed on carrion. They'll feed on bait. So if you can bring a leopard into a bait, why you want to feed a pack of dogs to do it? So you can still achieve your purpose. And it's only very recently that the whole industry has adopted more conservation focused harvest models. Before, a leopard was a leopard. It didn't matter if it was small, if it was big, if it was male, female. If you came across it, that was your chance. Take it. You're not going to see one every minute of every day. You might see a herd of gazelle or impala or that zebra. You'll see zebra every day. You can be selective with the one you want to shoot, even buffalo, elephant. But leopard, it's that sneaky thing. You're not going to see it all the time. So that was the culture up until fairly recently, where there's pressure now. There's pressure for accountability. There's pressure for conservation. So taking the right animal is very important, and selectivity in that is recent. I'm talking 30, 40 years, not even. So it's nothing in the scope of trophy hunting or of tourism hunting. So hounds just haven't found a place. I think that's changing, and we'll see it used more and more people are adopting it. but yeah, I think that's effectively the answer to that question.
Now, is hunting over bait cheaper? Or,
It can
or
be.
a hunter?
It can be, but not significantly. Probably the most you would pay currently on top of a standard safari, if you want to include a pack of hounds, would probably be another 10K. So if you factor that in to having to return again, it makes more sense just to throw 10K now than another 40 later.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It sounds like an education thing for you got to go to like dentist conventions and like tell them like, I want to talk to you about the clientele too, because I mean,
sure.
I'm a plumber. I have my own business and I deal with, not many people are paying licensed plumbers to come fix their stuff. They're calling their brother's friends, cousin, uncle that comes fix their stuff. And, to call a licensed plumber, you got to spend money to have somebody professional come to your house and fix the issue. So I deal with these, what I like to call the lizard people. Does it ever irk you where somebody maybe doesn't have the respect for the quarry taken and the effort that was put in? And does
Absolutely.
that ever, and you just, I mean, obviously I'm like, listen, I'm in the same kind of thing. You're dealing with people that are wealthy and you want to make them happy but you just kind of bite your tongue. Does that ever kind of become an issue where you just...
It absolutely happens. But I suppose what is fair to mention is that not every person that comes to Africa to hunt is that professional dentist. A large portion are. But man, I got guys, I had a chap who came out last year and it turned out his hunt was unsuccessful. We did tree leopard, but we didn't tree the one that we needed to. He took a couple of very nice buffalo. He shot a lot of other nice animals. He had a fun, wonderful experience. But the real primary reason why he came out, he didn't get, but he saved up for years to be able to do that. So he's just a business owner. It's not a massive business. And this was his dream, and it might be his only shot at it. And yes, I've got guys that come out there that are super wealthy. They could do nothing else but travel around the world and hunt. And some of them do nothing else but that. And they'll shoot a leopard and turn around and say, okay, what's next for today? And so it's not fair in that sense. And it occurs. We don't really filter clients, but after 2 weeks of being with a person, you get a good idea of who they are and they get an idea of who you are. Right. And yes, you definitely get into situations where you don't really think the guy deserves this. And sometimes it works out that way, Guys come with a kind of attitude where, I've paid the money, now I want the result. And it's still up to nature. A good friend of mine, he described what we do, and he put it in a very good way. He said, I work so hard to try and convince these guys to purchase my product. And then when I get them to my camp, I have to go out and find that product.
Yeah.
So
true.
So a lot of effort goes in, and to spend the time with someone who's very blasé about it, or it's just, I've inherited a whole lot of money and I feel like doing this now. I used to build cars and race cars. Now I feel like shooting big animals. And so I've got all the gear, no idea, but I'm paying you, and it's hard to get along with that, but we're professionals and we do. And at the end of the day, conservation needs funders.
Yeah.
And I respect anybody that is prepared to put their money down, make the flight out over there, and sleep with the mosquitoes for 2 weeks.
100%. Yeah. It's very true. That's a true statement, because the only thing that's funding the conservation over there is the hunters, basically, right? From my understanding. I mean, the camera, the photography tourists, they're not spending not even a fraction of the money that the hunters are spending for conservation.
Absolutely. And even if we don't just look at the money, if we look at area conserved under the hunting model, well more than double is conserved in compared to the national parks and the government initiatives where the majority of photographic tourism occurs.
Right.
Non-consumptive tourism in one way or the other. So hunters have well less than half the footprint. They're not staying in big elaborate camps. Not everything is plastic wrapped. There's not mobile, cell phone tower for mobile coverage. There's not a tar road to the camp. Mostly hunting camps mostly are not super glamorous things. They're comfortable. They give you everything you need with, the fortunate facility of Starlink. Everyone now has internet connection, but that's only very recent. Before it was, if you didn't have a satellite phone, you didn't have comms to the outside world.
Yeah.
And so in terms of the footprint, the impact to the earth, the hunters are marginal in comparison to what the other tourism classes are. And the investment is, the conservation investment is well more than double. And these are all statistics that can be very easily fact checked. This isn't a promo. This is you can call me a liar and go find out that I'm not.
Yeah. I think at this point with, the Joe Rogan experience, all these other, outlets talking about this stuff, I think you would just be basically just lying to yourself to say that the hunting community is not doing the most effort in preserving wildlife in Africa at this point. Because that's the education part, where before it was like, oh, it's just, they just want to shoot stuff. And then it's like, no, well, actually they're the ones that are dropping $50,000 to go over there and hunt. That money gets broken up into this and used for that and pays these people and pays that people, which keeps everything safe, keeps the poachers out. We had, I forgot her first name, Aaron, but we had a anti-poaching woman come on that worked with different dogs tracking poachers in Africa. And she told some crazy stories. That was a great episode. But who's paying, her and her team and the team that lives there full time, patrolling the entire perimeter to get poachers out of the area? The photographer people are not paying it. It's the hunters dropping serious money that are paying it. And it's just a different model of wildlife conservation. And in the States, we do it a little differently. And, and you're doing what you got to do, and it's working. It seems to be working.
That's right. And it's not that the photographic industry or similar are not contributing. They certainly are. But when you look at the scale, it's not on the same scale. And there's a lot of reasons why not. It's another long conversation, but anybody that's interested in going down that, you can quite easily access that information, especially now with these wonderful these AI research tools that are available. But yes, that's a very true statement. It's not matched like for like. And even historically, the whole, at least in Africa, it may be different in other parts of the world, but certainly and especially in Southern Africa, the whole tradition and standard operating procedures and setups and camp constructions and uniforms, everything about the safari industry comes from hunting pioneers that might have been going after ivory, that might have been going after whatever. That is where this all originates from. And when you go to a really nice photographic safari camp, the imagery and the textures and the foods and the architecture and everything, it still relates back to those original kind of pioneer camps and where that came from, those hunting camps. And so you may be shooting with a camera, and we're all cool with that, but you're effectively doing the same thing. You're still hunting animals. You're just not just not eating them afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah, the
I
white
was thinking
the
about
white
that when
hunters is what they're called, right?
you're the photograph of the leopard over your shoulder there.
Yeah.
And that you're pulling the trigger for the picture, you could have just as easily as shot it. And maybe
Absolutely.
it was shot after that. Who knows? But so no, that's very important to note. There was a point in time where, I mean, there are plenty of hunters. Casey and I run into them who they can't. They're totally okay with shooting a deer or a falconer who's okay with catching small game, but they have a moral words failing me, but like a rejection of big game hunting or predator hunting. Something about that feels immoral to them. And that's part of what we've tried to do as a podcast, is try and connect the dots and say, like, you know, at the end of the day, hunting is hunting, killing is killing. These predators need managed. This places value on their lives. Otherwise, why would people deal with their presence there in Africa? You know, why? You know, the lions that are killing livestock and all, like, just kill them all. It'd be a lot easier that way.
And that has happened. And it's only in the regions where they have a value that they persist and that they're protected. And there's so many examples, tangible, current examples, where you can see that there is rewilding of areas funded by hunting that is on a large scale. Areas that may have been war-torn, areas that have been previously agricultural zones, whatever, that have been rehabilitated for wildlife for the sole purpose of sustainable hunting, as an industry, as a business. And the offshoot from that is nature conservation. But I think that we're also getting to a point where we no longer we don't, there was a period of time where people, trophy hunters are almost apologetic about it or having to explain it. And I have heard that statement, well, if you're not going to eat it, don't shoot it. And I think it's very a naive kind of statement, because you can just look back in our history and we would shoot a bear for its fur, for the warmth, for its fat, bones for tools, claws as jewelry, whatever. An animal doesn't have.
You're
just
still consuming it, whether or not if you're not eating it. If you keep the fur, you're consuming the animal.
Yeah. So we shoot a leopard. Somebody pays me a trophy fee. I take that money and I pay school fees for my children. So my dogs ate the leopard. Are we now criminals because we didn't sit around the table and consume the whole leopard? So I think it's just a very funny statement, and it comes from people who are engaged with hunting. They have the passion around it, but the final little kind of step, the acceptance of being the super predator, is maybe not there. And this is just my own theory, and I'm not saying this is, use it, don't use it. But we are, we're predators. If you're going to shoot an elephant, a lion, a tiger, a polar bear, whatever, it's all the same action. The process is what we are addicted to, what we return for. We don't really return for the dead animal on the ground. Very few of us. Some, yes, but very few. We're really returning for that process. And it is incomplete. Referencing the picture above my shoulder there. It is incomplete for a hunter just to take a picture.
That's good.
Yeah, it would certainly go through all the effort and then end with a picture and no kill.
Yeah.
It would feel, it would feel incomplete, using your words. Yeah, absolutely. It's well, we want to thank you sincerely again for coming on, Gavin. And for you guys who are interested, check out panthertrackers.com. Get on there and inquire about your hunt. And Yeah. Thanks again for coming on, man.
What a pleasure. And thank you very much, guys, for creating these platforms and sharing all this information that we can out in the world. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Can't thank you enough, man. Thank you.